Yes, fantasy time. Good to talk to you guys again. Jared, long time no here. Golf, I think, was the last time we spoke about, right?
I think our last show was a football show, wasn't
Was
it?
it? Well, we said
I
that.
don't know. I lose track. Been a while.
Yeah, we did the show on the 4th.
Yep.
Actually, it was the same day that we did the golf. No, it was the same week. So you're right. We did the golf show on the 2nd and the fantasy show on the 4th. So,
Feels like 2 months ago.
yeah. How's it going, Matt?
We're like 2 weeks out from the NFL season. Why are you guys even bringing up golf at this point? Come on.
Hey, the championship's starting today. Anyway.
It's fantasy draft season now.
That's right. And how many drafts have you guys already been in? 50?
I have no idea what the number is. Last night, though, we were streaming. Well, we didn't stream it live, but we were recording as I drafted my FFPC main event draft. I had our boy Adam Krautwurst with me. So I just posted that stuff this morning. People can watch and listen to how that draft went. But we're in the thick of it. We got drafts of all sorts pretty much every day from here on. It's another marathon tonight where we're doing more drafts where guys will be live doing drafts and streaming them.
So when you do them live, how does that work? Since are you actually doing them on just like you would normally on an app, on your website, and then what are you just bringing it up? How does that work?
Yeah, so tonight's going to be Football Guys Players Championship drafts from myffpc.com. Adam and Mike Schauf are going to be hosting streams about that. So they're actually going to be drafting teams into that tournament on the FFPC website. They'll be talking to guests about it throughout. It's going to be several different drafts. I'm going to be drafting at 11 o'clock tonight, so I might have to take a nap in the middle of the day. I'm getting a little bit old to push it that late. But yeah, just running through the draft, talking about strategy as you go through. Of course, the challenge when you're actually streaming a live draft is like, how much do I say about what I'm about to do and who I'm considering just in case my opponents are watching? So that's why it was good last night to record it and not actually stream it live.
All right. And Matt, Jared, how about how many? Because we're going to do one probably next week, right?
Yeah, that FFPC, that's what I was telling you, that we should get in one of those together so we can track it throughout the season. But yeah, I have my main event draft on Sunday, and I think we'll be streaming that. I'm not sure if I'll be on the stream or not, but someone will be talking about it.
Well, give me an example where I should go to so I'll know exactly what it is that we're going to be doing.
Yeah, check out, it's myffpc.com, and then I think we should do a best ball draft. Cut down on the work we got to do during the season, but give us something to follow.
And that's best ball, you said?
Yep.
And then and again, the best ball, and I've never done it before, and you kind of explained it to me off the air. So if anybody out there doesn't know, and I didn't know until you explained it to me, what is best ball?
Yeah, so you draft and you're done. There's no waivers during the season. There's no trades. And then the other aspect of it too is you don't set a starting lineup. The software goes in after the week's games and picks your optimal lineup. So if you have 3 quarterbacks, your top scoring quarterback will get used in your starting lineup. Same deal with the other positions. Your top 2 running backs, your top 2 wide receivers. So you literally draft and you're done. You're just kind of sitting back and seeing how the team does.
Okay, so what you're saying though is that top scoring. This is everybody plays, and whoever has the top scoring, those are the guys who count. Sort of like best ball and golf.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then it's a total points league. So you're not going head to head. You're just posting your score every week, and whoever has the most total points at the end of week 17 is the winner.
I like that.
It's fun.
The matchups can be kind of screwed up sometimes. You get like the worst matchups, and it's
yeah. And there's some there's different strategy involved when you can't add or alter your roster throughout the season.
And again, that, like you said, especially if you have a lot of other drafts or if you're kind of busy, that's good to have one of those. That's cool. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, cool.
I also I think that it ultimately rewards the best actual team. There's strategy, but I think ultimately the total points and the not head to head and taking your optimal lineup so it's not, you're not screwing up and picking the wrong guy to go in your lineup each week or losing out to an injury. I think it ultimately rewards the best team that was drafted.
It sounds like it to me. So yeah. And then how much is it? Like, what is every you can join a league depending on how much money you want to join for?
FFPC is all different price points. I know they have $35 ones still going off. It goes all the way up to, you can get in leagues that are, thousands of dollars.
Wow. Okay. Well, we won't be doing that this year. Maybe next year. Okay.
Yeah,
let's get into it.
Down to $5 drafts too. At this point.
Yeah. There you go.
Hey. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's talk about our risers and fallers since our last conversation. So let's talk first of all. I tell you what. Let's talk about a couple of risers, because there's a wide receiver and a running back that really stick out for me as well. That's Brandon Ayuk for San Francisco, and also Dameon Pierce at running back. Those two risers. So, Matt, which one of those two do you side with the most, Pierce or Ayuk?
I mean, for which one I would take, it would depend on what I need at that point. How much I have at wide receiver, how much I have at running back. I would say if I'm in a vacuum, which one is the higher upside player? I'd have to go with Brandon Ayuk, just because I think he's the more talented guy, first round wide receiver 2 years ago. So right now it would seem crazy to say Brandon Ayuk has a chance to be the top producing wideout for the 49ers this year. But 2 years ago at this time, or even 1 year ago at this time, actually, 1 year ago at this time, he was coming off a really impressive rookie season. Deebo Samuel was this injury marred guy that we didn't know if he could hold up for a season. And Brandon Ayuk was getting drafted earlier. So now I'm not betting that Brandon Ayuk outscores him, but the reason I'm interested is because I think that is within the range of outcomes. So if I take Brandon Ayuk at the bottom of wide receiver 3 territory, and I think that the ultimate ceiling at least reaches into the top 20, obviously if Deebo Samuel went down, that would even further help the target count. So I think there's lots of upside from where you're taking him. And even if he just is fine at the level you're taking him, I think where you draft Brandon Ayuk is pretty close to what his floor should be, assuming that San Francisco doesn't just stink this year, and I don't expect them to.
Yeah, I think and he's also a veteran compared to the rookie, so that's that. And then even though the rookie might get a lot of touches, Matt, but how about you, Jared? What do you think about, because it is Trey Lance, so we don't know, and you do have to deal with Deebo Samuel, but it does sound like Pierce could end up getting, probably by the end of the season, the most touches of all the running backs on the Texans.
Yeah, Pierce is definitely like your late round sleeper target at running back in your drafts. I think you're going to be able to get him in the 10th, 11th, 12th round in a lot of your drafts.
What would that make him?
Yeah,
running back what?
40 to 45 maybe. And I think he's inside our top 35 at this point. Yeah, he's a running back 4 who I think could even give you RB2 production if things break right. Pierce was an interesting prospect coming out of Florida. I mean, the knock against him was he didn't put up big numbers in college, never sort of got the volume. He was always stuck in committee backfields. But you look at a lot of the advanced metrics like broken tackles and elusive rating and Pro Football Focus grades. Like, he was awesome in that type of stuff. Tested well. The tape I thought was exciting, and then he comes in that first preseason game. I mean, he just looked like a guy ready to make immediate impact, especially compared to the Marlon Macks and the Rex Burkheads. And then the second preseason game, the Texans don't even play their rookie. They play the veterans. They play Marlon Mack. They play Rex Burkhead. Lovie Smith comes out and says, we saw what we needed to see from Dameon Pierce in that first game. So that to me says they know he's their best back, and probably right out of the gate he's going to be leading that backfield and carries.
The other thing is you have to weigh it's Houston. So what do you think? Is that possible with Davis Mills that they're going to be? You have to have that positive feeling that you believe that Davis Mills is going to continue to grow, that Houston's going to be better than they were last year. And speaking of Houston, how about the wide receiver position? Because I'm pretty high on especially for Dynasty fans. I'm pretty high on Nico Collins and his future. He's got the size. They obviously liked him. That's why they drafted him high last year. He's now in year 2. I know that they have Brandon Cooks, and he's going to get a lot of touches. But Collins could end up being the number 1 guy, to tell you the truth. I know Cooks is maybe more safer, but maybe Collins breaks out this year. I think he can only break out so much, again, because he's on Houston. But it's not like they have a whole lot of other targets. So Nico Collins may be a nice little sleeper. Matt?
I definitely I see the upside path for Nico Collins. I'm not high on Nico Collins relative to where the market is on him. I think Brandon Cooks is still the underrated guy there. And, we had an offseason where there were rumors of Houston looking to trade him. Didn't happen. They extended him with big money. So it looks to me like he's still number one. And I'm rolling with Brandon Cooks, but I definitely see the upside path for Nico Collins. He's going late enough that I'm absolutely not opposed at all to drafting him. And certainly longer term, there's plenty of physical upside to him. Betting on Houston long term,
yeah,
still a little bit iffy, but again, it's late enough where it's like, yeah, that can work out.
Well, that's why I mentioned Dynasty, because I still think, look, who knows how things are going to work out, but I think they had a really good offseason, and they seem to be headed in the right direction. So,
I mean, Mills was good last year, and I know, what was he, a third-round pick, but like he had a bunch of knee issues at Stanford. He was I think the top prospect in his recruiting class, if not the top, the second, the number 2 rated quarterback. So he has that. He has the skill set, and I think if the knee injuries are behind him at this point, he could end up being the answer for Houston at quarterback.
Another riser, a couple of risers to talk about. One you have is George Pickens, and everybody seems to be on this George Pickens bandwagon, and I know how good he was at Georgia, and Georgia still won a national championship without him, basically, even though he came back late in the season, made a couple of big plays, but still, they would have won it without him. The fact is, though, he's a very talented player and nice little sleeper because he was injured most of last season. But here's the problem that I have. Again, I think this is more of, to me, I think this should be more of a dynasty talk, because you got the quarterback situation, and then you still have other receivers. You still possibly a number 3 on that team, and you still got a running back that's going to get a lot of touches. I just don't know if this would be the year that I would go. I mean, you tell me, where do you think he fits best, Matt?
Well, so it's interesting. Looking back at the draft we talked about from last night, I thought George Pickens went earlier than he should. And that's what we run into this time of year is you get all the camp buzz, you get people excited, and then a guy is naturally going to move up the board. And then you have to decide whether you're chasing him or whether you're saying, all right, it was fun for a little bit, but now that everybody's on it, I got to be off. I think that's where I am with George Pickens. He went wide receiver 48. He went at the start of round 9, not crazy, but he went off the board with Robert Woods still available, with Russell Gage still available, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Even Jahan Dotson is a fellow rookie and has, I would say, at least as good a path, maybe a better path to targets in his offense. Carson Wentz, nobody's excited about, but he's probably a better quarterback right now than either Mitchell Trubisky or Kenny Pickett. Although we'll see about Kenny Pickett. He's been a lot better this preseason than I would have guessed that he's going to be. So I get the excitement on George Pickens, but I think for fantasy purposes and for this year, as you were talking about, Greg, I think that he's climbing a little past where I really feel comfortable drafting him. And like one more name to put that into context, Chase Claypool went 2 full rounds after George Pickens. I mean, is there a chance George Pickens?
No.
Yeah, is there a chance that George Pickens passes Chase Claypool right away? Sure. Yes. But is it likely? I wouldn't call it likely. No.
Yeah, that's and to tell you the truth, if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm starting Pickett day 1.
I would too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. One of the running backs that you have is a riser, and he had the big injury last year, of course, and now he's coming back as J.K. Dobbins. So now the only thing though is I still hear these questionable reports though on, is he going to be ready week 1 or what's the situation? So why do you have him? Why do you feel confident, Jared, that he's somebody that you now need to be keeping an eye on?
To me, Dobbins is a riser because I'm not sure Gus Edwards is going to be a factor at all this season. And if he is, it's not going to be the second half of the season.
Okay.
He's well behind Dobbins in the rehab. I think Dobbins is going to play week 1. We've basically heard that, his snaps and touches are going to be limited out of the gate, which makes sense. So, maybe in September he's a shaky fantasy play, but I think like by October, if he's close to 100%, and again, if, Mike Davis is the number 2 running back in Baltimore there, before Edwards is ready, I think, they're going to give that backfield over to Dobbins and he's going to see nice volume. It's obviously a good situation. He's a good talent. So I think, it might be a slow start, but I think, Dobbins could definitely pay off, and you can still get him in the, 5th or 6th round of these drafts.
Okay, I want to go through a bunch of guys that have injury situations that you tell me whether or not I should be concerned. All right, Miles Sanders. once I started hearing that he's dealing with injuries again, it's like, no way. I am not. And to tell you the truth, then I'm hearing Scott's getting more carries again, and I was going to jump on Gainwell, and now I'm hearing Scott again. I just don't want to hear it anymore with the Eagles. There's no way I'm touching unless they drop. There's no way I can touch any Eagle running backs. I just can't. And I would think people probably are on this Gainwell kind of kick for year 2, but I can't with Scott hanging around. I don't know what the Eagles are going to do, Matt.
Yeah, so I think you should definitely be concerned about Miles Sanders. He was somebody that I was excited about very early in the draft process. We're talking back in spring and even before. But the hamstring, as you mentioned, he was already tied for the most likely running back to get injured in our Draft Sharks injury guide projections. And that is with not getting projected for like a true lead back workload. We don't have him projected for, 240 plus carries. We have him projected for, I think, something a little short of 200 or right around 200 over the course of the season. So he's an injury risk going in. It's already popped up this year. I mean, he is going at a spot where it's not going to kill you if you draft him and he doesn't do anything, but you can still wait even another round or two beyond him and get Kenneth Gainwell. Yeah, Gainwell is somebody that I am interested in, but I'm also not feeling like I need to get him. And then Boston Scott, you bring up, that might just be the best way to get into the Philly backfield, because I think that the offense is looking like it's going to be productive this year. I think it has a very high ceiling. Boston Scott was RB 75 in the draft that we had last night. And really, he's a Miles Sanders in-season injury away from a split backfield. We already saw him work like that last year. So I think stashing Boston Scott late is a good idea. Yeah. I think Miles Sanders I'm wary of. I think Kenneth Gainwell, I'm either in or out depending on whether I'm looking running back when he comes up on my board.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Okay, a couple of receivers. How about Jared, CeeDee Lamb, and Juju Smith? So all of a sudden we hear Juju Smith, something's wrong with Juju Smith. It's a little minor thing, but I don't even want to hear anything negative about Juju Smith going into the season for me to feel like, I'm confident to take this kid. Because we talked about it a few weeks ago that I liked the possibility of going with Juju Smith and having a breakout, but any warning signs at all like this worry me. And then also CeeDee Lamb. I had CeeDee Lamb on my team last year, and it was so infuriating because whether it was injuries or sharing the load, and I know he won't have to share as much as a load this year, but it's still, I'm a little bit concerned with CeeDee Lamb as a real top, and number one type receiver.
Yeah, so Lamb actually got back on the practice field yesterday on Wednesday. He had a cut on his foot that needs stitches, but he's back on the field. So I have no concerns about the injury. He is priced up this year. If you want CeeDee Lamb, you're going to have to take him in the second round, probably in the first half of the second round. So that's definitely baking in a big projected bump in targets, which I do think he'll get. So I'm fine with Lamb where he's going. I think Smith-Schuster's injury is the bigger concern. It's knee soreness is what they're calling it. He had reportedly been having a great camp before that, kind of looking like Patrick Mahomes' favorite target outside of Travis Kelce, at least. And we'll see about the injury. Andy Reid said a few days ago he's not concerned about it, that he expects him to be ready for week 1. But it'd be nice if, at least by next week, we see Juju back on the field.
Matt, who would you think is the best bargain, or you just mentioned Scott out of the Eagles backfield seems to be a nice little target out of the three, to tell you the truth. So maybe you're right there. What do you think about the Chiefs and their wide receiver situation?
The Kansas City wide receivers, I think it's not really clear who is going to lead the way in targets. I could see it being either Juju Smith-Schuster or Marquez Valdes-Scantling if everybody is healthy. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is going about 5 rounds after Juju in drafts. To me, that makes it not even close between them. I'm just not interested in Juju where he's going, especially because if I miss out on him, what I'm missing out on is the guy that leads the Chiefs wideouts in targets, not a guy that's going to get 15 plus yards per catch and score 12 touchdowns.
What about Skye Moore?
So I'm not worried about
Skye Moore.
What? Well, Skye Moore is operating like the 4th wide receiver at best for them right now. Mecole Hardman's been ahead of him. Even Justin Watson was ahead of him in preseason games. So I like Skye Moore long term, but I think the way that fantasy drafters are treating Skye Moore right now they're expecting more than what the Chiefs need him to be. So I don't feel the need to reach for Skye Moore, even in wide receiver 4 range of fantasy drafts. I'll just wait, do the long-term stuff. I'll take MVS, who has already been in the league for several years, who got paid this offseason, who has speed, and who had his own buzzy offseason workouts before training camp started.
So Skye Moore, is he actually being drafted ahead of Scantling?
Oh, yes. Wide receiver 44 in ADP versus 54, 53 for MVS.
Okay. So that's definitely the strategy going in. What the strategy should be going in is let them take Skye Moore first, and of course maybe even Juju, and then just sit back and wait for Scantling. All right. And what about the running back situation? Because I know, Jared, that, I mean, you take a look at it, and it seems to be set. That means that Jones is the odd man out, correct?
Yeah, Ronald Jones is the 4th guy in this depth chart. He's probably not going to make the team. We'll see if he gets traded or just outright cut. But it looks like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jerick McKinnon, and Isaiah Pacheco are, the clear top 3 at this point. Exactly how the touches are going to be divvied and snaps are going to be divvied, but we're not sure. I mean, based on the preseason, it looks like Edwards-Helaire is going to get the first shot as the, early down guy, with McKinnon playing in passing situations. And I think Pacheco, they think he can do, some of both. They have been using him in the passing game quite a bit in camp and in preseason. He can, be an early down guy. Edwards-Helaire is still the guy that should be the first one off the board. He's going to get the first crack. But I do think Pacheco is interesting because I think, he's going to be the next man up if Edwards-Helaire stumbles again. I think the Chiefs just sort of see McKinnon as the passing down guy.
And as far as let's stick with running backs, Jared. What about the Rams? Because you have Henderson and then you have Akers, and McKay's in love with Akers. We know that. So he's going to give him every chance that he's going to give him. But we're hearing that he's banged up again. So that has to be, a warning sign. So would you stay away from Akers, especially if he goes high, and just sit back and then maybe just go with Henderson?
I mean, both these guys are banged up right now. They're both missing practice.
Big surprise.
With, soft tissue injuries. Yeah. I mean, that's almost the upside case for both of them, is that, they're both injury risks. And, if one of them goes down, then, the other guy's going to be, close to an every down back in this top 10 offense. And in that case, they can be a top 12 fantasy back. But I'm kind of buying into that it's going to be more of a committee this season. Akers probably leading the way, but I don't think he's going to, get even the workload, he got down the stretch last season when he came back coming off the Achilles, and they, basically made him the feature back. I'm not sure you're going to see that from Akers this year.
But the coach just loves him. So we'll see. All right. What about the Washington backfield, Matt? Because it looks like Robinson is the main man, and Ron Rivera is absolutely he seems to be in love with Robinson, and then he seems to have this I'm stuck with this Gibson guy, and I can't wait till he's off the team. I just, that's what we're getting with the media, which is very strange for this to be going on in the media.
Yeah, I'm not drafting Antonio Gibson at all until Ron Rivera says something nice publicly about him again, because I don't remember the last time that I heard something nice about him. Right now, Gibson's like the student that has the potential, but he's just not applying himself. And Ron Rivera is the teacher that's just fed up with it and ready to move on to the guy who's actually applying himself. And Brian Robinson's the guy that's applying himself. So they're saying we saw the week 2 preseason game where Antonio Gibson started as the kick returner. Brian Robinson started as the clear lead back. And then afterward, it's still positive stuff about Brian Robinson. He's faster than we thought he was. He catches the ball better than we thought he did. He's good between the tackles. We need to get the ball to Antonio Gibson in space. To me, that doesn't sound like a guy that you're planning to apply as your lead back this year. I think Antonio Gibson's been pretty good to this point, but he's also been feeding off of large volume, and it doesn't sound to me like Washington wants to give him large volume this year.
And Jared, as far as the drafting situation, is this where you just say, okay, because the boards are still going with Gibson, and Robinson is still way back there. So I don't know how way back, but you could tell me, should that be the strategy? Is go ahead and let your competitors draft Gibson, and I'm just going to sit back and take Robinson?
Yeah, I mean, we have Robinson ranked ahead of Gibson at this point, and Gibson is still going earlier in fantasy drafts. So if I am dabbling in this backfield, it's definitely Robinson for me. My concern is you have a third guy involved here too, in J.D. McKissick, who's going to get most of the pass catching stuff, and that really puts a pretty big dent in the upside for Robinson or Gibson.
Yeah, it's an okay backfield to just be completely out on too.
Yeah, but just like the Eagles that we talked about. I wonder if Gibson. I haven't looked at his contract. I wonder if he's tradable. So that'll be something to potentially keep an eye on.
Yeah, he's still on his rookie deal, so he's cheap. He's definitely tradable if another team was interested.
I tell you what, a few other injury notes that I want to jump on. Should I be concerned, and tight ends especially? So let's talk quickly with tight ends. Should I be concerned with Darren Waller, Jared?
Yes. He's practiced like once all camp, and it's a hamstring. Hamstrings are always worrisome, and it's a brand new offense too. He hasn't gotten many reps in now, so I'm concerned about Waller at this point.
Okay.
So am I.
All right, and should I be interested in Cole Kmet?
Jared?
No. I mean, he's fine. He's fine. He's going to get volume. I don't think he's very good. The offense is not going to be very good. And there's 5 other tight ends going in that range that I'd rather have than Cole Kmet.
Okay.
I think fine is a good word for Cole Kmet. He's fine. He's not going to win you your league, especially because now he's going earlier than he was at the start of draft season. On Underdog right now, he's tight end 11. He was like tight end 15 through 17 back in March, April, May. I'm not even sure how long he stayed there. So at that level, I think he was interesting. Now it's like, okay, I need a tight end. I guess I'll go ahead and take Cole Kmet, which is fine. He's going to get lots of targets. I don't think the numbers are going to be huge.
All right. Tampa Bay's wide receiver situation. And now we're starting to hear good things about Julio Jones. And Chris Godwin seems to be getting close to being healthy. But what do we do with Evans is still the number 1 guy. What do we do with the rest? Are they being overdrafted? Are there some bargains there at all, Jared? You think they're overdrafting Evans?
A little bit, because I just think so. Like Evans was going in the 3rd round for a lot of the offseason, and then he kind of bumped up into the 2nd when you got the Rob Gronkowski retirement. We sort of thought Evans was going to see this big target share, which he hadn't been seeing the past couple of years. I just don't think people have reacted enough yet to the fact that it does look like Chris Godwin's going to be ready early in the season, and added Julio Jones. So there's just a lot of mouths to feed there. It's definitely a situation you want to be invested in. I mean, this was the pass heaviest offense. The Bucs threw it like 40 more times than any other team last season. And I think they're, again, a good bet to finish, top 3 in pass attempts. So you want to be invested in these guys. To me, Chris Godwin, Gage, and Julio Jones are still, the best value. It's just how late they're going. Godwin's available in wide receiver 3 range.
Okay.
Gage and Julio Jones are, wide receiver 5s. And I don't know exactly how the situation is going to play out. But again, I think you just, take pieces of this passing game. And I think they're all going to have, fantasy value at different points of the season.
Staying in the division, you guys seem to be considering Michael Thomas a riser. Is that true? And aren't you a little bit worried though? I mean, he still seems to be. We still seem to hear these little injury notes out of camp. Shouldn't that concern us?
So the reason he's a riser for us is because once he did get on the field in training camp, people are like, oh man, this looks like the Michael Thomas I remember from before his injury. So that's some confirmation that the physical upside is still there. The reason I'm not too worried about the injury side is that he's wide receiver 28 in ADP right now. We know that a fully healthy Michael Thomas at peak was leading all fantasy receivers. Now, I'm not saying he still has that upside with Drew Brees gone and a new offense, new coach, Jameis Winston as a quarterback. I don't think he's got wide receiver 1 overall upside, but I don't know where the ceiling stops at this point. I'm sure that if he's fully healthy, it's somewhere well above wide receiver 28. So I'm willing to take on some risk with Michael Thomas as my number 3 wide receiver and just find out where that ceiling is.
And sticking with the Saints, Alvin Kamara seems to be having a really good camp. So Where's he being drafted? Is he being drafted where he should be? Jared?
I'm seeing him in like the mid 2nd. Sometimes he gets to the late 2nd round. I think that's about where he should be going. It seems like there's very little suspension risk at this point. It sounds like if a suspension is going to come for, the Vegas incident, that it's going to come in 2023. My bigger concerns, and they're not big concerns. We did see some drop in Kamara's play last season, both in terms of actual fantasy production and in terms of some of the efficiency stuff. Maybe he's past his peak. He's like 27 years old now, but he was still good last season. And the other concern is the loss of Sean Payton and what's that going to mean to this Saints offense. But I just think you have 33-year-old Mark Ingram behind Kamara on that depth chart. Like, Kamara, when he's healthy, he's going to be getting the volume. He's going to produce as a running back 1 in fantasy. So again, I think if you're taking him anywhere in the, middle to back half of round 2, I think Kamara is going to pay off for that price.
Okay. And what about Gallup coming back from injury? Do we look at Gallup as somebody sort of like Godwin in a way, where he's starting to get there, and maybe he'll have a slow September, but he's going to get a lot of opportunities and maybe even be a really good option once we get into late September, early October? Matt?
I think that Michael Gallup is like Chris Godwin in that I'm wary of both of them heading into the season. So what I like about Michael Gallup is he's going to come off the board well after Chris Godwin. Now that they're both seemingly healthier than we probably anticipated heading in, it doesn't sound like either of them is going to open the season on the PUP list. So if you can stash Gallup in a reserve spot on your roster where you can wait until he's all the way back and seeing full playing time and then stick him into your lineup, I agree. There's definitely upside October, November. If he is anywhere near full strength, we've got Amari Cooper gone. That's what we like about the target share possibility for CeeDee Lamb. Same thing for Michael Gallup, and where you're drafting him and the kind of role he would play on your fantasy team. You don't need 140 targets for him to pay off. If he can get to 115, 120 with Dak Prescott, who they're saying at Cowboys camp is having his best camp as a Cowboy. So there's a chance that this whole offense is just slightly underrated and that Michael Gallup can help us late in the season.
The Gallup situation's been tough for me to read. I mean, he was like a month behind Godwin in terms of their rehab. Gallup didn't have his knee surgery until early February. So that would generally put a guy back on the field like late October, early November. And Gallup came out like 3 weeks ago and said, I'm not going to be ready for week 1. But then we had Jerry Jones come out a couple of days ago and say, Gallup's probably not going to open the season on the PUP list, which I expected him to. So, that means the Cowboys expect Gallup to be out there before week 4. So evidently he's far ahead of the pace I thought he was on. So maybe, he is going to be, I didn't think he was going to be a factor until the second half of the season, but it seems like he might be, a month or so ahead of that.
Okay, and one more, and then I'm going to close with a quarterback question, and that is Josh Palmer. How good is Josh Palmer as like a little bit of a sleeper, especially if you have one injury to a couple of guys who are prone to being injured now and then with the Chargers offense? So, Matt, what do you think about Josh Palmer?
I think he's fine to stash. I do think you need injuries to either Keenan Allen or Mike Williams to break him out, but I love Justin Herbert, so I'm good with stashing Josh Palmer. He's right ahead of Van Jefferson, Robbie Anderson, Nico Collins in ADP. KJ Osborne's there as well, so he doesn't tend to stand out on my board as an option there, but he's the kind of guy that if you pick him there, I'm not telling you it's a bad pick.
And Kelly now looks like he's the number 2 running back potentially?
For now.
That's... To me, the takeaway there is don't draft a second Chargers running back. Take Austin Eckler. Forget about it as a handcuff situation, because if Isaiah Spiller has not pushed those guys aside yet, then it's going to be a mess if Austin Eckler goes down. You just want to not be in it.
I actually was high on Kelly coming out as a sleeper when he was drafted. And you know what? I like this kid. But he's gotten off such a bad start, and I forgot about him. But now all of a sudden, maybe the light is turned on. So, but obviously your strategy makes sense at this point. All right, now let's close up with the quarterback situation. 2 guys, Matthew Stafford. So we're hearing a lot of news about injuries with Matthew Stafford and him, an injury, and him, of course, being a little sore and all that stuff. So how do we treat Matthew Stafford, Jared?
I mean, the news has turned pretty positive on Stafford lately. I mean, he's been a full go at camp for, the past week now. Sean McVay says he's throwing well. Peter King went to Rams camp and said he, noticed no difference in Stafford's arm. It sounds like this elbow thing is more of a like discomfort, maybe pain tolerance issue, and that it's not really impacting his performance. So it's going to be something he's going to have to deal with all season, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be a factor out there on the field.
We've certainly seen Stafford play through pain quite a bit in his career.
Yes. He never played that much last year. That was the first time he ever played as many games as he has. So, it's all right. And by the way, Deshaun Watson, or is it now officially a done deal? Just stay away from Deshaun Watson completely?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. He's out 11 games, so, you can target him on waivers if you want. There are leagues where you can stash him if you want to use him late in the season, especially if you waited on quarterback. But yeah, don't rely on him for anything for your fantasy season.
My thing too is like he's going to come back in it's week 13. He'll come back because there's the bye week mixed in there too. Like he's gonna. So I guess he can rejoin the Browns midway through the suspension. Now, he can't like I don't think he can practice. He can like sit in on team meetings and stuff. But you still have a guy that is going to have not played football in what, like two years at that point. Like he's not going to be super familiar with the offense. So I wonder how productive he's going to be even when he does return, in week 13.
Yeah, he could be interesting to keep an eye on as a backup as you get closer, because I'm sure if he's available on the waiver wire, that's going to be everybody's strategy is what do we do? When do we pick up Deshaun Watson as we get closer? Because you got to feel once we're into the season, they're not going to add any more games. I can't believe that. So once we get started, we know it's going to be when it's going to be. And then the thing is that when he comes back, he's going to be coming back in some of the leagues right around playoff time, and that makes it interesting. So, but like you said, it still might take him a month to get familiar with.
You can at least stash him at that point, give him a game or two to see what's there, and then see if you can use him. You don't want to stick him in a lineup right away when he comes back, but a couple of games before most leagues get into playoffs could be a potential difference maker, especially if you have a roster that's really good, but your quarterback's a little shaky.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you need Deshaun Watson, that's not a good thing.
Yeah. I like him as a third quarterback in the best ball leagues we were talking about. You just hope he gives you 2 or 3 big games down the stretch.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Okay, I'll remember that next week. All right, sounds good, Jared. Matt, appreciate it, and we'll talk once the season begins. We'll have to work on that weekly schedule, and by then I'll get my router fixed. So hopefully anybody that watched this video didn't realize that we had a lot of technical issues, but I've got a lot of editing to do after this. So guys, appreciate your time and efforts, and we are going to check you out again on your Draft Sharks fantasy site. And what's the name of it? Draft Sharks Fantasy?
Draft Sharks.
Just Draft Sharks. Just hit Draft Sharks. That's it. And again, want to remind everybody up the ticker on your screen. You see, you can go to the rlads.com. I believe it's /fantasy/news. You get a free week of insider access to the Draft Sharks War Room. And then, of course, hopefully you'll become a monthly subscriber. So, guys, appreciate it. We'll talk to you once the season begins.
Greg, thanks for having us.
Got it. Thanks for being patient, guys.